Hey,
Yeah.
there's only two of us today.
Yeah. Oh, also, so we are now on YouTube, apparently. Um,
Oh, very
Fun
good.
news.
Hello,
Yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah.
Hello,
I'll post
YouTube
our
world.
YouTube link just like on the chat too, which will be like weird if you're watching it on YouTube. But so we made a YouTube account to stream on a while ago, and we finally got around to setting it up, and it looks like it is streaming.
Pretty good. Welcome to Philosophising. We are Sans a member today, but I am Ruby.
And I'm Nathan.
And we're going to philosophize about science today. And I guess our first topic on YouTube and Twitch is this one that Nathan proposed 40 hours before we're about to do it, which we were surprisingly ready to go. So we thought,
Yeah,
let's just roll with it.
So we were. Also, I feel like 40 hours is like a lot. Like, I feel like that's more hours than we usually get. But yeah, so tonight we're talking about the science of attractiveness. And I think it was interesting because like I suggested this on the WhatsApp, and then we all had like very different ideas about what that actually meant. Like, I think some of us are like, oh, let's talk about waterfalls, and some of us are like, let's talk about dating apps. And like, but which like I think is inherently interesting that like people use this term in so many different ways.
Yeah. Well, you were vague about the word attractiveness. So
Yeah,
I think it was, immediacy because I was just in Iceland
because you
on
were
vacation.
traveling. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now I'm again traveling in the middle of Canada. I'm in Banff National Park
Oh,
in
okay.
Canada,
Yeah.
looking at waterfalls and rocks and stuff. And I was like,
Okay.
attractiveness. I got it. We can talk about it. And then I
Okay.
looked.
I think it was also for me immediacy because I was on dating apps looking at people and being like, attractiveness is not these people. Uh,
And Nadira was looking at her cat and was like,
yeah.
attractiveness with animals. And I was like, oh, okay, we interpreted this prompt
Yeah.
very differently.
Basically just
Um,
primed by what we were doing. Anyway. um,
so we picked Nathan's topic, basically,
yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he suggested it. So his gets primacy for the
Sure.
purposes of today's stream. Um, yeah,
And so
so I go
yeah.
ahead.
So one thing I wanted to talk about, and I found this was really interesting, was the golden ratio. Um, and I can, if you all have not heard of this, it is. Let me pull it up here.
Fibonacci's, like the spiral
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah. So it is essentially you take a number and you multiply the number by 1.68, and then you do that again and again and again. And so it's also called a Fibonacci sequence. Anyway, the most famous demonstration of it is this thing, which I'm sharing the screen, entire screen. So I think the case that most people have seen of this is this guy. So this is the example that people really like, which is that nautilus shells apparently grow in the golden ratio. So what's being depicted here is that kind of you have this curve and it starts here and then you make a step out and that step is 1.618 times bigger, and then the next one is like that, and then so if you kind of compute it like that, you get this spiral.
Okay, sorry. I just have to pause you there because the figure does not match the words. Because you're saying that it should match that spiral, and clearly the shell is smaller than the edge of that line that goes across the
Mhm.
curve on the top. So, I mean, clearly this is an example where it didn't
The
match, right?
nautilus is not the yeah I
The
was
shell, right? That's a
that too.
confusing figure choice.
And it's like Adobe's like thing, like I don't know if they just picked a bad nautilus or like what is going on, but
There you go. I think that was a
Yeah.
whelk. What you had shown
Okay.
earlier. This is the
But
nautilus.
it's
There we go.
described as a nautilus on the thing. But anyway, I mean, I do think like, but it's interesting. So like with all of these, like it's clearly not exactly the golden ratio, right? Like the spiral always goes out further than the nautilus at the end.
Yeah. And if you take it further out, if you take
Mm-hmm.
the Fibonacci sequence further out, it's going to clearly not represent a nautilus anymore. Because
Big or
yeah, because of how
yeah,
wide it would get. It like each
mhm,
circle around it would
yeah.
make it would go even further wider away, and it would um but I think I forget what book series I was reading a long time ago, and they like kind of hinted that this was like a secret sequence that was found everywhere,
Uh-huh.
um and all over nature, and it was like it explained God or something like that. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, how strange. um but perhaps it could explain attractiveness. I'm not sure.
Well, right, yeah. So that was why I went to mention it on the stream. Was that like one of the things that's often said about this is that like this ratio explains why we find things or people attractive, and kind of the idea is that if something matches the golden ratio, we're more likely to find it attractive. And you can actually do it even with like people's faces. Like you pick a feature on the face and like draw the spiral, and you show it matches that. And the interesting thing is that that is actually like completely made up. Like, so apparently what happened was that just like some mathematicians were just like, the Fibonacci sequence is pretty cool. And like, I guess it's attractive to them because they were into math. So then they're just like, anything that has the Fibonacci sequence is attractive. And then it kind of, to no pun intended, spiraled into this thing where like a bunch of people were like, oh, this is such a cool phenomenon, it must be everywhere in the natural world. And then like actually it really wasn't. So like we were like looking at these nautilus pictures, and you can see that the nautilus is actually not in the golden ratio. Like it always sticks out further than the side of the nautilus, right? And so like it turns out nautiluses actually don't grow in the golden ratio. They grow a different ratio, which is like each step is always like multiple bigger than the next step. So it does have a constant ratio, but it's just not that one. And it's just because of that's how shells grow. Like it would be weird if they didn't grow with a constant ratio like that. Anyway, so basically this is just a complete myth. Like it's just entirely made up.
Okay, so I'm actually quite like I'm surprised that the shells grow at a particular ratio every single time, because I thought it would be affected by like one year they ate a lot of food and then they just grew more, and then the next year they ate less and then they grow less, and like it would determine. It's kind of like tree rings. That's how I interpreted how like
That is
shells
true.
worked. It's
I mean,
surprising that it's defined. So like this is like there's a genetic thing that makes them only make this much shell every year so that they will grow.
okay, and in fairness, the source of this was the Adobe Photoshop's like training for designers, and it just said nautiluses grow at a constant rate. So I'm not 100% sure that that this is the established dogma in nautilus biology. But I wonder if it's. I mean, I wonder if it's like because those things vary. So if you just take the average measurements of a nautilus, you get a constant ratio. Like
That's fair. Like if you saw like
yeah.
hundreds of nautilusks, like, and you combine them together, that I could see that.
Yeah,
Um,
like it varies from year to year, but that variation is kind of random. So on average, the nautilus has a constant ratio.
and
Or
yeah, okay.
maybe, I mean, oh, also, because also it's a ratio between kind of like the length of the shell and the width of the shell. So maybe it's because those just tend to go together. Like if the nautilus is hungry, neither grows that much.
Or it could just be like a thinner shell. but like the
Yeah.
volume is the same.
I'm thinking it's probably just like it's like the ratio between like our arms and our legs. Like
That's fair. There's like an approximate ratio. I think they tried to apply this golden ratio thing to the average human as well. And they're like, this is the ratio, like for a human, like the perfect, like non-Barbie human, I guess, like would follow these ratios. And I guess if you take an average, like normalized the entire population of the world, you could get something similar
Mhm.
to that number. I could see that, but I don't think it's like a secret,
Yeah.
like a secret, explanation for the universe. It's just
Yeah,
like
no, it's just like
you
it's like if you take a bunch of data and average it, you will get a number. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's probably some constraints, right? Like you don't want one leg to be dramatically longer than the other ever, because that makes it like hard to walk. So like that's kind of evolutionary, like that ratio is evolutionarily constrained to be like near one. But like
yeah, I could see that.
Mhm.
But like on the selection side, on the other side, so there's like one leg being longer than the other hurting your chances to survive. There's also the other side, which is like the sexual selection part, which is like you got one really long leg and one really short leg, not attractive, or you're really straying really far away from the ratio of norm, therefore you're not attractive. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what about that? Like, is that a thing?
like you're
Has
asking
anyone
like
done
does sexual
experiments on that?
selection play a role in why we
Yeah,
yeah. I think
but like unconsciously,
yeah,
right? Like we do it unconsciously. Like a lot of it is
I
unconscious,
think
quite
probably.
unconscious.
Yeah. And it's so we're talking about like the average human, right? And that was another thing that like so the golden ratio doesn't really explain much about human attractiveness. But one thing that is that people really so people actually the closer your face is to the statistical average of people on in general, the more attractive people will think you are. Um
Oh,
because this really
I'm just like I'm just reminded of remember when like AI art was like generating the average the average um the average person in each field.
oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Sorry, give me a sec. It's that way. So remember, like it was like construction workers, doctors, whatever, and it was just like averaging the faces of like
Mhm.
all the people in that profession, and then you looked at them, and I was like, oh, okay, so that would be an attractive person in that field.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Like
so when you did that, were you like these people are attractive or
they went into uncanny valley for me.
okay.
I feel like if people are too attractive, it goes uncanny for me. But I understand. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I understand where they're going with the AI art, but like I was just like, oh, these are shockingly attractive humans. Like
Think it was because they
it
were
went
attractive,
uncanny.
or do
Yeah.
you think the AI oh actually let's do an experiment. Um so there's another way that people did this before AI, which was you would just take a bunch of pictures of people and average them. Um so like do you think like these people look attractive? Or are these also
Yeah.
Uncanny Valley?
These did not go to uncanny valley for me.
So
These are fine.
yeah,
These are completely fine.
actually, let's go to
Maybe
this
it's the AI,
website. Yeah. Um,
the world's most average
uh-huh.
faces.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they're objectively very attractive.
Hmm.
Um, but if they're like perfectly symmetrical, that's also creepy.
That's all. That's
Like,
creepy. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like people are like, oh, the more symmetrical it is, like the more attractive. Like, and the evolutionary like argument for that is like if you have like asymmetrical abnormalities that could like mean illnesses, but like if it's like super symmetrical, like take like a photo like of yourself and just like replicate it the other way, it's so creepy.
Uh-huh.
It's so creepy to see muscles that are
Right.
like completely like
Completely
strengthened to
symmetrical.
the
Yeah.
uncanny.
Yeah. And so it's
um
interesting. So like I feel like that is also related to this effect, because I was looking into like, okay, so like why do people prefer the average faces? And I think one of the better explanations is actually, so there's this psychological phenomenon called the mirror exposure effect, which basically just means like we like things that we're familiar with and don't require that much effort to process. And so kind of the more average your face looks to someone, like based on their particular history of the kind of people they've been around, kind of basically the more familiar it is. And that's the theory on why we like the average faces.
Oh, because they feel like an in group, like this
I
is
don't know if
like
it's even like this was not in the field of like social psychology. It's so the like, because this can happen with like other things too. Like if you see a particular breed of cat a lot, you start to like that kind of cat more. Like, and the thought is that we don't like spending cognitive effort on things, and things that are kind of familiar don't require as much cognitive effort, so we start to like them more.
ew. I can see that. It's like all the other ones that looked like this, I was great with. Therefore, this one
Uh-huh.
I'll be
Yeah,
great with
yeah.
too.
It's like, and like there's some sense in which it's reassuring. Like there's nothing that kind of is like I have to like spend mental effort assessing this person. You're just kind of like, okay, they're familiar and probably fine. Is the thing.
Yeah. So I just like jumped straight into like serial killer line, just like sidebar. Like I realized that serial killers, like when they have been caught, they've always had really average
Wait, sorry,
faces.
when what are caught?
Serial killers.
Oh, uh-huh.
Like when you see their photos, they seem like average people. Like they
Oh,
have
really?
taken advantage of the fact that like faces that are like average like don't surprise people. Like they can kind of just blend in.
Maybe
It's
this
like a
is me being
very
like face blind, but whenever I see serial killer photos, I always think they look very derpy.
oh, do they look derpy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like it's all the other parts. I think we give less credit to all the other parts besides the face than like the hair and like
Okay,
your
yeah, I think
clothing.
maybe.
If we had isolated just faces, imagine like minus the hair and it was just like these floating blobs of like circle globes with like no neck. I think
They would look very
like
average.
no, it would be very difficult to identify
Oh,
people,
yeah.
like even people who are not space blind. Like like whenever they're like telling people to pull people out of a lineup, like I think they do it now, but before they didn't always do this,
Mhm.
and they had the perps wearing their clothes from when they got arrested, and they're like the same clothes. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't think they're matching the eyes and the face and the nose. Like no one looks at someone's face that carefully at a quick
Hmm.
glance to be able to re-identify them. They use all the other cues that you are probably very familiar with because you rely on them exclusively.
Yeah.
Um,
Although there is a face test called the Cambridge Face Memory Test, which like they specifically do that. They strip out all the details except for the face, and then they also add kind of noise to the face as well. I'll put in the chat if anyone wants to try it, but most people can do it surprisingly well. I mean, and for me, surprisingly well means like at all. But like I'm
Flipping faces
how?
is information for you. Okay, so I think I was trying to like not experience like put myself in your shoes.
Mhm.
And I like looked at photographs of people that I'm familiar with like upside
Mhm.
down, like my family,
Oh
like
yeah.
family photos
Uh-huh.
with like 20 family members, like right side up I can tell you exactly who everyone is.
Mhm.
But if you flipped the photograph upside down,
Uh-huh.
I don't think I had trouble. Like I can notice I can do me and my immediate family because I had to like rotate them upside down.
Uh-huh.
But like it's really hard because like your eyes are drawn to like their mouth and chin, and you're like, who this? Who
Right.
this?
Uh-huh.
was quite difficult,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, this must be what being Nate is like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I was gonna say that's a really good face blindness simulation because we have like neuroscience data that actually turning the photo upside down, like literally that is what it does, is it turns off the dedicated face processing systems. They can only recognize faces that are right side up. So it really is a very good simulation of prosopagnosia or face blindness.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. I stumbled on that on my own.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, I had not thought about that, but like it totally is.
Yeah, I mean, you've adapted so well. I forget. I frequently forget
Mhm.
that like you even have it because we would be like walking by a statue, and I was like, "Wow, that guy looks like Albert Einstein," and you're like, "Wouldn't know."
You're just like, I'm usually just like, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I had like I
No,
forget because you're
yeah,
so
yeah.
good at it. Oh,
Mhm.
well, you're so good at adapting."
Mhm. Yeah, and I think like for context, like just I mean you know this, but like for anyone who is curious about this, so there's two kinds of face blindness or prosopagnosia. So face blindness is first of all it's the inability to recognize faces, even though kind of all the other aspects of perception work fine. And it's really strange. There's two kinds of it. One is a kind that you're born with, and the other kind is that you get if your brain is damaged. And I have the kind that you're born with, which I think is easier because kind of you grow up having like the neuroplasticity to learn other ways to recognize people. Um, but yeah, anyway, but okay, we kind of got on a tangent. So I was gonna say, I feel like the about some serial killers and face blindness, and
Sorry, we like went way off track, but we wanted
yeah,
to talk
no,
about dating
okay.
apps, right?
There's also a weird horror movie about like a serial killer stalking a woman, and she can't like, she can't like figure out what's going on because she's also face blind, and it gave me nightmares for a while. But anyway, that's still off topic. But what I was going to say is that I think that familiarity effect explains why you find like the hypersymmetrical faces really like off-putting, because it's like they so facial symmetry is like something that's associated with attractiveness, but it's also if it's too extreme it gets very far away from the average, which makes it seem like it's not familiar, it's which makes it less attractive and more disquieting.
Yeah, because in real life, it's very rare to be perfectly symmetrical. Like to have
Mhm.
perfectly symmetrical hair. Like imagine how hard it is to have perfectly symmetrical hair and to
Yeah.
smile perfectly symmetrically every time. Like it's a strange thing. I think you have to train to do that. Like it's not
Mhm.
an innate thing. You would have to like really put effort to like combing your hair and like gluing it down so that it's like perfectly symmetrical. I don't know. It's uncanny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. Um,
Yeah, the super symmetrical like AI generated things are
yeah, I mean, I think it's also interesting because like when you like this is something I've noticed like when people talk about like fashion models and stuff, it does seem like a lot of people like there's kind of a division where some people will be like that person is attractive and some people will be like that person is kind of creepy looking. And I wonder if it's like the same thing. Like it's this tension between like they have traits that we are sexually selected to find attractive, but on the other hand, it's so abnormal that some people find it not attractive.
yeah, it's like on the edge
Mm-hmm.
of like the mean if there is if there truly is a like a bell curve, a
Yeah.
Gaussian curve. I don't know if there is
Yeah.
for attractiveness because it's kind of an objective thing.
Mm-hmm.
um
Like you were saying, like, could you, is there, like, what is the like, if you just ask people to give attractiveness ratings of other people, what would the distribution be like? Or,
Yeah, I think actually what's most attractive is like just off like a standard deviation away from like the perfect mean. I think about this back because so when I interpreted this question, this prompt earlier, I thought about nature, and I was
Mhm.
listening to this podcast about how groomed trails are. Like human trails are super groomed, and I was just like, really, even the nature trails, and they're like, yeah, they're like designed. Like nature trails for human walking are designed because they're not just like animal footpaths to get like from water to like home. Like these are footpaths to go like to places that are not useful. Like why would you go to the top of a mountain? Like go the hardest way up.
Uh-huh.
And they would like put rocks in the way so that you would have to like climb and hop it and
To like
boulder.
have a
And
thing to
also
climb. Yeah.
yeah, just like force you to make it. And so they're like, yeah, they don't make it perfectly groomed because we actually don't enjoy that as much. It loses aesthetic power when it's like a
Uh-huh.
perfectly groomed, perfect nature. It kind of needs to be just off by that much.
Huh.
For us to be like, yeah, that's attractive.
And
And
so
I
you
think
think that's true of people too?
yeah, I think we like really good, but then we just want like, we want like a dimple, but like on one side. Like we want
Uh-huh.
like one thing once in a while. Like, just like something. Like you can't just be like completely perfect. I think maybe this is me, but I think people can agree like most fairly I want to see like people who spend a lot of time in front of screens, like news anchors and actors and actresses, like you can they're not perfectly symmetrical. They're just
Uh-huh.
off by that much, right, from the perfect average face, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think also like in terms of personality, like people, I mean, this is like a whole trope, but it's like people often actually prefer people who are like not necessarily the best personality match to them. Like people will like prefer someone who's kind of like mean or like has a different attachment style or something like that. I
Yeah,
think
I was
that
gonna say, I feel like an average person is pretty awesome. Like it's not an insult. Like you want someone like you don't want someone that's like on the extreme of everything. Like average sounds, it's like a compliment. Are you disagreeing?
like okay, maybe we're getting into the dating app portion of this, but like I feel like I don't know. I feel like this is a problem that I've had on dating apps, which is there's like a lot of people who are just like extremely average and bland, and they're just like, what do you enjoy? I enjoy traveling and people and like hanging out with my friends, and they're just like, cool. What do I do with this? Like,
That's fair. Oh, well, that's just a poorly designed um like app profile. Is it a profile?
yeah.
Like they're not, they're not writing it well
Although,
because they're not.
okay, but I also have a theory, which is like this is based like only on like just stuff I've seen, but I kind of my theory is that actually there's a much stronger selective pressure on dating apps towards the average. So basically, like people start out with their profiles being kind of weird and idiosyncratic in the various ways that they are, and then they find that like they're not getting very good matches, and then so they revise them, and the trend is to make them more bland. And this is my theory.
Oh.
Um,
Oh, so they're just like watered down and it
Right.
doesn't
And
reflect
and
their
so
real
kind of my
personality.
hypothesis about this is that like all dating apps basically try to match people on how attractive it thinks they are. So it'll try to match you with people who think it thinks are approximately as attractive as you. Um, but the problem is most of them, we think this is all trade secrets, but most of them probably represent attractiveness as just this one-dimensional thing. And in that system, it's a really good strategy to just try and be average. At least like that is a strategy that kind of works. Like I guess another way to put it is that if you have a profile on this app and you have a photo that like 25% of people really really like, but the other 75% find like a little less attractive than average, you're actually not going to do that well in like the way the algorithm considers you,
Ah.
because the only
That's
input it's getting is like how many people liked this photo.
yeah,
So
okay. That's disappointing because I was like, oh, like you don't need 100% of people to like you. You just need like one person. Like
Right.
The goal is just one, but like the measurement is for the masses. It's like if the masses like you
Right.
versus if one person would be a good match.
Hmm.
Oh, that doesn't seem useful.
Yeah, and like it's like the problem is like I think, and like lots of people talk about this, is basically kind of like if you fall below a certain threshold, the app will effectively kind of prioritize your profile behind all the other ones, so it kind of stops showing you to people,
Oh,
which means that kind of it's really selecting for this kind of single dimension consensus attractiveness, which I think really favors being really bland and
boring.
the average as possible.
Got it. Oh, okay. That is disappointing. That feels like the opposite of what dating apps were supposed to do. So I remember thinking, reading or watching, learning about the early phases of like Facebook, and the idea was that it was designed so that someone could rank people,
Oh
and
yeah.
then that rank would go into helping you find a match. I think that was the original goal, right? It was, or it
Mhm.
was just like a hazing thing where they wanted to rank people.
Yeah, I think
But
they
the
just
idea,
wanted. I don't think it was matching. It was just to decide like how hot people were.
yeah,
But
like
yeah.
yeah. But in doing that, that idea of ranking the people, and then also having the people being ranked the other direction as well, is like the theory behind like the explanation of the stable matching algorithm I wanted to talk about
Oh yeah.
when
Uh-huh.
Nathan brought
Yeah.
this up.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that's actually that's how the algorithm works. This
Mhm.
algorithm is used for many other instances where matching is really important, and stable matches specifically are really important. So, for example, it's used for matching really recently graduated doctors to their residency programs. It's also used to match organs with organ.
So what does it mean to say that a match is stable?
Yeah, so a match is stable when the party will not leave each other.
Okay.
Because
Uh-huh.
so either, so let's say like one, like party A and party B, so let's just say like a man and woman, just for
Mhm.
example, a man and woman, they're stably matched if, like, I'm not saying they're happily matched, I'm just saying they're
Mhm.
stably matched if either they're both happy with each other and neither of them want to go because they're both each other's first choices, or one is the second person's first choice, but the second one can't do any better, so they can't go anywhere even if they wanted to. So that's also a stable match. So like all the versions where basically they can't leave, or if they leave, they would be
Mhm.
no longer
They would
paired.
have a yeah.
Yeah, so that's a stable match, and so that is what people want. Like for example, in residency programs, you want people to be matched stably, so hospitals have to train the most number of people as possible. So there's like least number of hospitals with empty slots, and the stable match is like a really good way to do it. Same with organs. So you don't want to waste organs, so you rank each recipient of organ that needs an organ by like distance from the donor, like age, like health, things like that, and they go into this like algorithm, and basically the best matched person gets the organ. And it's like, it feels like this voodoo science, but it's actually it's like it's an economics thing. It actually won a Nobel Prize at some point.
Mhm.
It's named after, I wrote this down, the David Gale and Lloyd Shapley's 1962 paper called "The Proof of College Admissions and Stability of Marriage Concept." And they did a math proof, which I thought, like when I first learned about it, I was watching a number files video, and they do a really good video. We'll drop that in the chat, where
Mhm.
they explain the stable match way better than I could in like a nice, concise way.
Oh,
But
cool.
when I
Yeah.
learned, yeah, when I
I think
learned,
you
yeah,
sent that, so I can put it in the chat. Yeah.
highly recommend watching that video if you want like an actual professor explain, like a maths professor explaining to you how the stable match problem works. But like it was kind of an uplifting thought, because it meant that as long as you continued working on the match, like basically you have party A and party B, like one men and women, for example, and like the women keep proposing to their top choice men. Then if the men agree that that's their top choice female too, they kept the match, and that's the match. And then the second round, the females that did not get a match, they would propose to their second top match, and then they would just repeat that process over and over again until everyone, and then the males could reject their match. So like once they have a match that is like a high female, but then later someone else that is higher on the list comes, they can reject their current match and go for the higher one. And so that would make it more stable. And so the idea is, after this is run over and over again, this algorithm would be usually run on a massive computer on a server for like a while. You would end up with everybody in a situation where it's stable, which is the idea of a matchmaking service. Like if you had like, the
Right, so
village
you
of
can kind of
matchmaking.
guarantee it's like the best possible outcome.
Yes, this is the best possible outcome. We don't know if they're going to be happy with each other, but neither of them can do better, and at least one of them could do worse. So like they're all happy, as in they're stably matched as a pair. If that's the goal of the whole, like it takes a bunch of assumptions that they have to be like opposite, like each group can only be paired with the other opposite group. So we were just talking about, in this case, heterosexual couples. We're also like there's a bunch of like those kinds of assumptions, but in that case everyone can be stably matched. Like there is someone out there for everyone.
But so then this does this require that each person generate like a preference ranking for every other potential person?
Yeah. So the way I thought this would work in like a app like setting was that everyone on the app could be like, I prefer males and I prefer females. They would go into two different camps, group A and group B, and then group B would rank everyone in group A, and group A would rank everyone in group B in order of like, I want to date this person or I want to match with this person. And then they basically run the thing. And so you would you learn quickly that the person that does the proposing first actually has an upper hand, because the choice they're slightly higher, their choices, their weight, the weight of their choice is a little stronger. And so, for example, in residency programs, it used to be favored by the hospitals, and it turns out people were actually happier when the students were the one that were favored first. So whoever does the proposing actually gets a higher up, which is like a leg up, which is like, I feel like it's kind of fair, because like you went and did the work of like proposing. Yeah. So like it's fair for whoever goes and proposes first. So anyway, so you do that, and then basically the computer auto generates this. Like after you submit the list, it just auto generates like your top match. And that's how I thought matchmaking algorithms on like apps worked. Like I always thought, I was just like, it should work. There's no way to game the system, right? It's very much in the order you truly believe in it. Like if you rank it incorrectly, then it's going to give you incorrect, like your less than optimal match.
I was gonna say, so okay, so first of all, this is a thing. Like, so for like some reason a long time ago, Hinge, the dating app, was like advertising that they used the like Gale Shapley stable match algorithm, and like honestly it was hilarious, because you're just like, this is just like their main advertisement to their users, and I'm just like you're just like, what? But they have this whole thing about like this was actually part of their marketing for a while.
Did you screenshot this from before, or is this like?
No, this was I looked it up because like I just remembered this because it was like a weird point to advertise. Like it's like, if you like just what a strange thing like to advertise about your app, right?
Yeah, I feel like this might be a niche audience that got it.
Yeah.
Right,
it was a long time ago, and I think they did have like okay, I kind of get it, because they were using it to be like, look, we like are doing this with a scientific mathematical basis. So I I kind of get why this was their marketing campaign, but anyway, but so okay, you were saying there's no way to game it. I'm not sure that's necessarily true, because like I think like the way that you were explaining it, like this algorithm requires that everyone rate like every other potential option and give them a preference, and like that's not how dating apps usually work. So like in Hinge, I think what they actually did is it like, because there's gonna be like potentially like 5,000 people like in your geographic area that would be like potential matches, say. And so like just you're not gonna have all that data. And so I think the way their implementation of it worked was that they use other signals and they try and kind of infer what your preferences would be. And I think that probably works less well.
Yeah, it wasn't like a linear ranking, like 1
I mean,
through 5,000.
if they are using that algorithm, they have to generate a linear ranking, right? But it's not.
Yeah.
It's not that they're like literally asking you to rate 5,000 people. It's they're asking you to rate like a couple dozen a day at most, and then they're trying to do some sort of data mining and infer and like build a model of kind of like what traits you like, and then use that to rate the rest of the people for you.
If people get binned, like you get binned into a ranking for it. Like
In
you
terms
just
of
get
like
like,
attractiveness, or
yeah, like I was just thinking about the problem of dealing with 5,000 people, like,
yeah.
and a population that is transient. Like people leave the app and come back in and don't
Uh-huh.
always live in the same place. Like this model is designed with like a population that doesn't change. Like for example, the number of doctors that graduate that year doesn't change. The number of slots in hospitals that can train them does not change. The number of organs are limited. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
when it comes to dating, it's like, all right, never mind. Like this number changes constant. It's like a fluid number. It's a big. I think
Mhm.
it's hard to build a good app. Like now that I'm thinking about it deeply, like a dating app is actually quite complex.
I guess, yeah.
You're like, no, they're just taking all my money. They all suck.
That's the thing that people talk about, is like that they're also not necessarily like they're not necessarily engineered to be the most efficient, because then people stop using the apps, versus kind of like you want. And I mean, this is basically just something that people talk about. There isn't direct evidence for it, but it probably happens. But like, you want people to be like find it useful enough that they keep using it, but also be frustrated enough that like they spend money on buying the like premium version of the dating app and stuff like that.
Yeah, that I remember seeing Hinge's advertisements, since we're talking about them. They advertise that they're designed to be deleted.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that like I was just like, does that mean they make less money because they are designed to be deleted?
Yeah,
Like
I
what
guess.
is the marketing plan here? Like
Yeah,
where are they going with it?
I mean, I will say, so one thing about Hinge, which is like what a like, I mean, they pretty much all do it. Like, actually, if you want to contact the people that it like thinks that are the absolute best matches for you, you have to pay more money for it.
Oh. So like they'll just match you, but like you can't talk to them until you pay?
Right. So like it'll give you the like mediocre ones for free. Um
What?
yeah, which is like it's just because it's optimized for them to make money
Yeah,
off of.
that makes sense.
Um yeah, so anyway, but like one thing that I've always been kind of curious about, and that I would kind of want to do if it was closer to my research, is so like it turns out that like it like a lot of labs that actually study like attraction, one of the things that they do is that they will organize speed dating events at the school, and then they'll collect the data and like manipulate different factors, and then just like they can use it to do experiments. Anyway, my what would be cool would be if you had a dating app that was basically funded through an initiative like that, where it was like, okay, we're going to use this as like a novel way to study human behavior. And like one of the things you could do it is you could actually really work on these questions, like really what is the optimal way to like match people. And because you're not being funded by people buying subscriptions to it, like you have the freedom to look at that, and then you could fund it through like NIMH or like the people who fund this basic research.
How ethical is it to simultaneously run like a dating speed round and use them as test subjects? Like, I feel like this is going to be a really hard IRB to get through.
I mean, all the existing dating apps also do that. They just don't publish the data. Like,
Oh, yeah,
like
that's
they're
fair.
doing experiments on people constantly. Like, I think.
Are you required to report if you do find a stable match and decide to leave? Like, do you tell them, or do you just disappear from like the data set, like from the app?
You can just disappear.
So like they don't even know if you disappeared because you were frustrated and rage quit, or if you successfully found a match and was like, yeah, don't need it anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
you can provide feedback on that actually.
oh, they do? Like,
You're not required to, I think, is the thing. Like a lot of people just disappear and they don't know why. But kind of you can also specifically say like, I'm leaving because like I found a match. Like oftentimes if you want to deactivate your profile, they'll ask you why. So they're getting some data, though it's not 100% comprehensive, because if you just delete the app, then
yeah.
they know what happened to you. I will say one of the interesting things that Hinge does is that after you've talked to someone for a while, it'll be like, did you meet this person? And if you say yes, then it asks you like, okay, what, like, is this a person you'd like to see again? Which I think is a cool mechanism because it's getting feedback on your actual interaction with them in real life.
Yeah,
So
like did it match the electronic
yeah.
version? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, very good. I feel like playing with the data would be really fun, but just for fun. Like, I wouldn't want to like live it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh.
Like it would just be fun to look at the data. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fun to look at the data. Like, I'm just curious, like how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's probably quite interesting to learn. Like, you can
Yeah.
probably learn
There's
a
one
lot
that
about like what works and what doesn't, right?
There was one where they used to have a blog where they actually talked about some of their data analysis, and then I think they shut it down because people were freaked out with the amount of like experimenting on people they were doing. But I think actually,
I bet.
oh yeah, it's still archived here. Actually, oh yeah, someone made an archive of it. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was gonna say, like, is there a market for open sourced, like dating app, like one that is like people can see all of it, like
I feel
it's
like
floating in the cloud in like a Google sheet or something. I don't know. I don't know how it would work, but like so that anyone that's in it, like you sign up, you basically are like, yeah, you can look at the data.
all the data.
Yeah, all of the data.
That would be interesting.
We experiment on human beings.
Yeah, so this is one of the archive blog posts from OkCupid.
Oh wow!
And so it was quite interesting.
It freaked people out, so they had to take it down.
Yeah.
Maybe we are just the data nerds that would look it up.
But okay, I mean, I feel like this is something that is like okay, like there is this interesting. There's this thing like from this site. There's this graph that people took of basically like how people's distributions of like likes on OkCupid, which is this old dating site, were sent, and it's interesting because like it's this like one really kind of crappy graph, but it continues to circulate, especially on like a bunch of kind of vaguely creepy incel-y forums, but basically people are really fascinated with this data, I think, just in general, like not even data people.
Yeah. Oh.
like I think people are genuinely like really interested in this. It's like, oh, what does make someone attractive, or like what do I do to be more attractive, or and
Yeah.
yeah, and like people actually think it's really cool to see data on it.
I was gonna say, okay, what do I think is attractive and how do I make myself more attractive? I think is like an age-old human
Hmm.
endeavor. Like
Yeah.
I think every human endeavors to understand and do better at
Yeah.
that. I don't
I mean, I think
at
not
some point in their
even.
lives at
I
least.
think not even humans. I think like every organism that reproduces sexually, like.
Yeah. It's like how do I sing or dance or
Mhm.
move better or build nests better? Like we're always doing that.
Mhm.
Um, huh. What this did become quite a fascinating topic actually.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Anyway, yeah, dating apps are weird. I think was the conclusion of that segment.
yeah,
Um,
dating apps are weird. Uh, it's more disappointing than that it's like
yeah,
not
they
working
kind of. I feel like it's like also like a thing that just like got messed up by capitalism, right? It's like, okay, we have the technology to like use this in cool ways, but that's not what it's being used for.
Yeah, like we could have made this a it could have been a cool thing that paired people in like a nice
Mhm.
way. Um, Capitalism
Which
ruins
it still
everything.
can if someone wants to do this like research one, but
Yeah. Any psych people want to do
yeah,
want to do
yeah.
some human research on some college students?
Mhm. Or just on everyone. Like that's why it would be a cool idea is you could make this and you could reach like a broader population and you could do all sorts of cool studies on it.
Yeah.
We should pitch
Oh.
this at the media lab. Like that. Ooh, actually maybe I should. Now that I think of it, like maybe someone here would probably do it.
Yeah, you could probably run it at your university.
Hmm.
That could be really cool actually. Um
Do we have any other topics we wanted to hit?
No, I think that's it for like the attractiveness
Hmm.
quotient thing.
Oh,
Um
okay. I did have one question, which kind of it comes back to like the thing about averageness that I was thinking about. So like a lot of animals have this thing with like runaway sexual selection, right? Where it's like so basically there's some trait it signals attractiveness, so that trait gets favored, and then like basically the trait gets like extremely exaggerated, and that's why you have animals like peacocks that have like this enormous tail. It's like 10 times the size of the rest of the animal, right?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Well, I thought, yeah, it was like that, but also that this animal that has these massive burden, it could still survive. So it's like so
Mhm,
strong, it can still survive with this burden on
mhm.
their butt. And like, hello, predators, come eat me. And they still
Yeah,
can get eaten, right?
yeah. But so we were talking about like the attractiveness of being like average or close to average. So do you think that humans have that, or do you think that we really don't?
Ooh. I think humans don't have it
Hmm.
consciously.
Hmm.
I guess we can, if we go into the NSF, not not NSFW world, I
Uh-huh.
think we kind of do. And it has to do with our gonad size, external genitalia size for primates. I think we have extra, it's just one of the largest ones in our species just does.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the closest we can get to be like, hey, this was sexually selected because it's, I mean, it doesn't really correlate with
Like
like
fertility or
yeah,
like yeah.
fertility or anything like
Mhm,
that. This is just like a thing that I think our species, I think it has to do with how social we are and how like that's our version of sexual selection. It just like
mhm,
you can just like carry around an organ that is easily damaged
mhm.
and like still survive, like keep going.
That's also probably why humans have breasts when not nursing, right?
Yeah,
Like very few animals do that. Like
yeah, basically are like
I
not
actually
carrying
don't think
around.
any other animals really do, right?
Yeah,
Like
unless they've already nursed and then like
yeah.
they're left with what
Mhm.
hasn't been
It's like
reabsorbed.
residual, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like flabby skin, like, but humans, like, they just they just have them like
Yeah.
all the time.
Although, but like, I don't know. I think the interesting thing is like if you're talking about like genital size or breast size, I think the interesting thing like is that like if someone is an extreme outlier, most people will have a limit where they're just like that's not attractive anymore, right?
No, I've seen some of these video game drawings of female characters, and I'm like a normal human, like a healthy human, would not be proportioned that way, and
Yeah,
like
I
it
mean, but
literally can't.
but like I feel like there would be a point at which like I feel like individuals will have different limits, but
That's true.
for
Like
each
people would have different
individual,
limits
there is a point where it gets more into the uncanny valley. Like I
for
don't
sure.
like this, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's certain things that I think we're really attracted to that I think it's quite innate. And those are some of the things. One of the other things I think that's like not sexual is like really like large eyes. And that's like
Mm-hmm.
if you look at cartoon drawings of people or any animals, like they just like display them with massive eyes. Cause like that's I feel like our almost fixed action response to it. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so cute because it's got these giant eyeballs. Um, like you can keep making them bigger and bigger, and then at some point it'll hit um like uncanny, but it's a lot bigger
Yeah.
than it actually is in real life. Like there's certain attributes, like you couldn't do that with a nose, right? Like if you just
Mhm.
increase the size of a nose and you just kept increasing it, it wouldn't become more and more attractive. It would just be like weird. But with
Yeah.
eyes, you could do that. You could like keep making them bigger and bigger, and then you're like, whoa. Like
Real. Huh. I I kind of want to try this as an experiment because my intuition is there's a point at which that would become creepy, but I actually don't know.
yeah, I wonder if so like okay, when I was taking like art class, like when I was growing up, they like taught us how to draw proportional faces, and you would draw like an oval, and then you would draw a line down the center, and then you would draw like a line, the vertical line, and then like you would try and place the eyes actually quite on the center line. And for the longest time, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that your eyes were on the center of the oval because I was just like, your eyes have to be like above the oval, right? Like, no way. Yeah, I
Mhm.
always thought I would draw eyes up here, but like the location of your eyes are actually quite central, and the reason, like we visually just like, well, maybe you don't, but like people that recognize faces put eyes at a certain height on the
Mhm.
oval, and that's like an optimal location. Um,
Yeah.
and people that have eyes that shifted further away from that optimal cross, they look strange. They
But it's
look
interesting
alien.
because, like, when I'm looking at our eyes, like, if I just had to judge, I wouldn't say they're in the middle. But
Yeah, you wouldn't say they're in the middle of your face. You're definitely like, yeah, they're in the top 2/3 of their face, right? Like it's a,
yeah,
like if there was like a hand, like I would put my eyes here. But actually, your eyes are like smack almost in the middle. Like it
interesting.
was quite shocking, and your ears are below that line. And I was just like, your ears on the bottom half of your head, and like, yeah, it's like, whoa, I did not know that. But yeah, if you draw like, actually, it's quite easy because I wear glasses. Like your eyes are actually, your ears are below your eyes. Like if you draw ears above your eyes, it's really strange.
It looks real strange. Yeah.
Yeah, like you learned like the proportions. Like you can just like stare at faces, and you're like, oh, this is, there's an optimal place for it, and if you like even move it a little bit too far, like the distance between your eyes, like if it's like a little bit too wide, like sometimes it's attractive, and then like if it's a little too wide, it's like, oh, this person looks like Kermit.
It's interesting that these are things that people have to like explicitly learn.
Yeah, I was like taught how to like draw these proportions in a class. I was like, here you draw cheekbones, like this is where the I think when you learn like skull, it's very different. Like with the flesh and skin on your faces,
Mhm.
it's actually it's quite different. And drawing like young faces and older faces. also quite different. I didn't know that. Like it's kind of cool because like there's aging, like you can use AI to age your face, and
Mhm.
they basically take advantage of that. Like all the like the artistic skill that usually is used to like readjust your facial features to be like this person has more skin and less like tautness and like less muscle tone and like gravity and they like apply. I don't know, it's cool. Like it's quite fascinating.
Mhm.
What a like interesting topic
Topic?
that
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like attractiveness. I hope y'all enjoy it. We didn't really have anyone join us today. I guess
Mhm.
it was kind of last minute, but thank
Yeah.
you for joining us. For those who have and will in the future, we're Philosophising. We talk about an interesting science topic once a week.
Mhm.
So join
Yep.
us
Yeah.
again
Next
in
week
a
for
week.
yeah. All right. Uh-huh.